But when you start seeing everybody as family,
Yeah.
believers, not yet believers, when you start seeing others as image bearers creating God's image to be like you in just as much need as us, and then thinking, whoa, must suck to have your basement flood or
Sure.
be homeless or in need or just hungry or nowhere to go on this holiday, right? Or whatever. Then you start seeing them as family, then you start treating them as family. And believe it or not, when you treat people like family, they feel more like family.
Welcome to the Everyday Disciple Podcast, where you'll learn how to live with greater intentionality and an integrated faith that naturally fits into every area of life. In other words, discipleship as a lifestyle. This is the stuff your parents, pastors, and seminary professors probably forgot to tell you. And now, here's your host, Caesar Kalinowski.
Okay, good to be here with you. Hey, you have come on a very unique day. I'm recording this actually from my hospital bed. Not to worry, I had a little stomach kind of issues that needed to be apparently taken care of with professional help. So, and it's all going pretty well. But they weren't going to release me to get back to the studio to record a podcast for you this week. So, what I'm going to do, here's the second thing that's really unique this week, is I'm going to share with you an encore presentation. Yeah, it's me and Tina and Heath, so that's going to be also a bonus, talking about how we treat people as the church. Are we treating people like guests when they're, in our homes or, in our services, or do we treat them like family and the way God does? This has been a very popular topic, and it was a very popular episode, and it's from way back, so there's a good chance you've not heard it before. If you did, I think you're going to really enjoy hearing it again anyway, and Tina's always as big a joy as always. So anyway, pray for me. I hope you enjoy this encore special episode of the podcast, and I'll talk to you real soon. Yay! Tina's here with us.
I'm here.
First time. This is awesome.
This is the stuff your parents and teachers forgot to tell you, but your wife has been telling you over and over. Talk about this stuff. So today we are going to talk about this, the difference between, making people feel like family,
Sure.
or do they feel like a guest? They kind of both sounds good when you say like, hey, are you treating people as good guests? Sounds kind of positive. Feel like family? That better. Upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how does God see us and all that? So, yeah.
I'm super excited to finally have Tina on as a guest. She's got so much experience in mission and living out the gospel identity. Why don't you guys share a little bit about how you guys met one another and maybe Caesar, your favorite story of her?
Wow, I should probably just defer to Tina because everything I'll say, she'll adjust it and then change the date. Because Tina knows the exact moment, time, date, atmospheric barometer pressure, everything.
And your life is always so much better when you realize that everything that I say is right.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So Tina and I, in the brief, feel free to jump in, honey. Okay. We met in high school. We were 16 years old. Tina came to a talent show at my high school. My band was playing. And
what was your band name?
It's called Chain Reaction.
Awesome.
Yeah. And when we wouldn't do what the teacher putting on the talent show wanted us to do,
right?
She said, "Well, you can just take your chain and react somewhere else." Yeah, I can remember that.
That is awesome.
Ouch. Right. Anyway, but Tina was there, and I briefly met her backstage. I guess which backstage? I mean, it's a talent show. There's a million kids running around, but that's where we met.
And Caesar had the coolest pink satin costume.
It was
ever.
lavender. It was lavender.
Wow.
It was not pink.
We got to put a picture of that in the show notes. If
and what did you think that day, Tina? What Kairos moments befell you?
I said, "This is the guy I'm going to marry." No, actually, I really had a kind of a God moment there and thought God was telling me that. So, and
Wow.
it came true. So
And I was only like the fifth or sixth guy that week that she had said, "I'm going to marry this guy."
He speaks through lavender suits.
Yeah, it's shiny and awesome. And guess what? I think we still have it somewhere.
I think it is still somewhere.
It's in a bin. It has been
This
used.
is awesome.
It has been used along with major amounts of spandex and studded belty things for many a Halloween costume for our kids over the years.
I love that.
Okay, anyway, and Tina is amazing and has always been with making people feel super welcome, and feel like a part of things, right? I mean, not only in community, because we didn't always live the way we talk about on Life School.
Sure.
I think we always had a lot of friends around, and because we did meet when I was playing in bands. we were kind of the band house. Everybody just
cool.
lived at our house, hung at our house, ate at our house, did their laundry at our house. You know,
Yeah.
and we had to learn how to manage people like, hey, dishes, you know,
Yeah.
like, hey, toilet paper, like, you know,
Yeah.
like all that stuff. But like, I can remember like Tina even made my dad feel like a part of the family compared to everyone else. Like not, I mean, in his life, my dad he wasn't Mr. Fun guy. Like, and so, yeah.
Still rocked
Yeah,
it.
and he didn't even really actually like me all that much when he first met me, but I did manage to win him over in the end. But a lot of that boiled down to when he came over, when the family came over, I really did try to treat them like family. And though I would always try to do special things for our family just to show them how much I cared, I still treated them like family and didn't cater to every whim. However, Caesar's dad was a bit of a picky eater, and I have to say,
Picky everything. Not like me. I'm not that way, hardly much.
most of the things that he didn't like to eat were the things that I like to cook, which made it a very interesting thing for me. But it seemed like after a while that he would eat pretty much anything that I made because I made it, which was fairly amazing to me.
Much to the chagrin of my sisters and my mom.
Yeah.
But what was going on, and he would say things like this is, I just feel super comfortable over here. I just feel great around you guys. Like your family. I don't know. You know, I love all the kids. I love you all the same, but I just feel really comfortable here.
And he did finally tell me, he's like, you don't treat me like a guest. You just treat me like family, which was pretty amazing.
Because he
Great
was
compliment,
family,
yeah.
but see, my dad was always that outsider and kind
Sure.
of broken and, you know,
Yeah.
and didn't believe his identity and all that stuff. And even as a Christian years later, it still was like the way they had people over and even the way like we did family dinners at my folks' house.
Sure.
It was more like an assembly line,
Okay.
right? And kind of in and out and cleaned and gone, right?
Yeah.
So that was a big deal. And I'd pay attention to that kind of stuff. And, yeah, and so that's early on,
Yeah.
but that kind of seeped also into then how we lived,
Yeah.
right, with others,
Absolutely. So
believers, not believers. Yeah,
let's talk about where you guys are at now, because you guys live in a really cool way. You have an open home. There's a bunch of regular traffic patterns you see, not only day to day, but week to week and month to month. Would you explain kind of what's it like being in a Kalinowski house?
well, there's we do have an open home. We live open home, like we say, the door is always open.
Sure.
and you know this,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Let it barge in.
And you can go straight to the fridge. But I mean, we live in different seasons of life. We've had times where literally people are over almost all the time. Like any given day, loads of people through the house. The meal is expanding, you know, finding chairs, folding chairs jammed around, you know. And there's other times where it's more organized in the sense that folks are around more as things are planned than less. But that's one kind of grows the other.
Sure.
More of those intentional, organized things, like right now with our new neighbors, are leading to more organic interactions.
Sure.
And them just stopping over for whatever, drop something off, borrow something.
Yep.
You know, I love it. You know, kid runs over. My dad wants to know if he can borrow a wine opener. You know, like
Yeah.
totally. And here's the bottle of wine in case. You know,
Yeah.
like right. And so yeah, we've had different seasons like that, and it's. I'm trying to think. Like, is it easy? Is it hard? I think it's normal.
I think it's been normal for us. I'm not sure that it's necessarily so normal out in regular culture. It seems like our society these days, like you have to call before coming over, and
Yeah.
if your doorbell rings, everybody freaks out. But for us, I've always counted it like the highest compliment when somebody would just actually pop over, you know, or if I could just go next door and borrow a cup of sugar or something.
You remember years and years ago, this is back at the mega church. I think it's before we were even like leading or pastoring in any kind of big official way. But our friends, Dave and Ramona Oswald, and I know they listen, so if you're out there, shout out. We just stopped by one day.
Yeah, we were out driving around doing like the Sunday drive.
We
know,
dropped
like
by,
you used to
3
do.
kids, you know, and we just stopped by and they're like, hey, what's up? And we're like, just stopping by, kind of in the neighborhood, literally. And you know, and so then we're like, oh my God, come on in, of course, you know. And then we end up having, I think, dinner. We kind of fostered ourselves, foisted it onto them.
They were a little shocked that we stopped by at first, and then their whole family was over. So then we, you know, just ended up hanging out with them, and I think
fun.
we did end up having dinner with them.
And I can remember how many times afterwards they're like, you know, so that was the coolest thing. Like years
Yeah.
later, that was the coolest thing. I just stopped on by, and we kept telling them like, because we see you as family, your brothers and sisters, and your kids are like our little brothers and sisters, and right. And
so we shouldn't need an invitation to stop by if you're family.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
our kids didn't really ever know a house where someone wasn't living with us,
Sure.
or like, hey, well, who's that guy? Like, I don't know. I just met him. He's kind of smelly. Yeah, I know. But he's like, he needs a hand and he's hungry. And so why is he wearing your shirt? Because he didn't have one, or his was shot. It was really, really shot.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And I need a pair of your socks, by the way, because you're his size now, son. Or whatever. So that comes and goes. But
the other side of that too is that our kids had the freedom to bring home their friends and people. There was never any time when people their friends weren't
allowed.
Yeah, allowed or even welcomed into the house. Yeah. So
and it's still the same now when they have their own homes.
Yeah.
And they're married. And they're coming over for something, I'd say more than half the time, one of them at least is, oh, by the way, I invited so-and-so over too.
Yeah.
And they're spending the night.
That's awesome, yeah.
And it's great. Okay, you get to. And there's always room at the table. We'll always find another pillow and blanket somewhere. And, you might be on a couch, you might be on a blow-up, but,
we'll take care of you.
And this comes from seeing everybody like family. Like, literally, we ask people, like if you and Kathleen and the kids, like, knocked on the door at 10 o'clock at night, it wouldn't be like, hey, what...
Yeah.
And if you said, you know what, our house burned down or our house flooded, they'd be like, well, you're staying here then. It wouldn't be like a question like,
sure.
Oh, wow, sucks to be you. What are you going to do tonight?
Yeah.
And so when we start...
I'll be praying for you.
Be warm and well fed. Yeah. But when you start seeing everybody as family, believers, not yet believers, when you start seeing others as image bearers creating God's image to be like you in just as much need as us, and then thinking, whoa, must suck to have your basement flood or be homeless or in need or just hungry or nowhere to go on this holiday, right? Or whatever, then you start seeing them as family, then you start treating them as family. And believe it or not, when you treat people like family, they feel more like family.
Absolutely. It's actually leading... I was just thinking about the story with your dad and how he said, I don't feel like a guest, I feel like family. You guys often talk about the difference between treating people in your home like family instead of guests. Wouldn't we want to take care of our guests and make them feel comfortable when they're over?
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with serving people. The difference is when between treating people as guests and family is when you treat somebody as family, they have all access. They can root around in your refrigerator. They can search through the cupboards.
And they know it and they feel comfortable too.
Right. Right. It's that privilege and access into all the parts of your life, not just the shiny parts that you want to show them at this particular moment.
Yeah. It's actually doing life together.
Yeah.
With our son-in-law, Daniel, we knew he was really part of the family. And this happened pretty quick for him with Kristen, is that he comes over and he just straight to the snack, shelf or cupboard or straight to the fridge. And he's just making stuff. He doesn't even ask.
Yeah, because sometimes I get a hug in advance. Sometimes it's just straight to the snack.
Because he doesn't have to. Now, check this out. Just this week, preparing for this particular topic of are we making people feel like guests, like at our churches, in our home, or like family? And what's that difference? I got something from actually a really respected leader in the church and someone I really like and follow. But they sent out this article about they had gone and learned some stuff from Disney. Some sort of Disney intensive on how Disney treats their guest. And they were comparing their Disney experience to their Sunday church services and suggesting ways to make your Sunday a lot more like Disney.
Wow.
Yeah, yikes.
Yeah.
Right? And so, they had said something like, they were quoting it, said, certainly Disney found its purpose and the secret of its success in providing excellent service to customers and visitors and tourists. But because words have power to shape our attitudes and actions, they were never used to describe Disney's target audience. Instead of our guests were invited and wanted and welcome. And they said, what's the difference between treating someone like a visitor at your church and treating someone like a guest? And, I'm just like, wow. And I'm just like, I'm looking here, I'm glancing while we're talking. It says exceeding guests' expectation is Disney's service strategy. And that, and that's what ours needs to be at church. So friendly, helpful parking teams. That makes you feel like family.
Yeah.
Because you remember the last time you were at your mom's and the parking team?
My
with the
stepdad's
orange
out there with
vest?
some orange cones.
Yeah. And you're like, hey, Ma, thanks for moving the orange cone. Getting you to and from the parking lot entrance successfully. Trash removal, beautiful landscaping maintenance.
Yeah.
This is the list, right? Team leaders visible, badged, and everybody can tell. And I'm going like, oh man, they're not seeing that church service and experience as a family getting together.
Yeah.
There's no way they're not. And so that's why they could easily compare it to, like, you know what we can learn from? Disney. And they're saying don't treat people like visitors, treat them like guests. And I think what we're advocating for is let's go way further and let's treat people the way God treated us,
Yeah.
the way God sees us. God sees us as his offspring. Scripture says that. We're all created by God in his image to be like him. He's a father to all. We all bear his last name, Paul says.
Yep.
And he not only sees us that way, but how did God treat us? When we were far from him, middle finger to God, ruling our own lives, far from him,
Yeah.
he pursued us, right?
Absolutely.
Where are you? A place at the table, you know, right? And I'm telling you, like, there is a huge difference when we see and treat people as family than when we treat them as guests.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love Disney. I love their experience, the Disney, customer service and,
Sure.
and guest experience. But you got to realize that is a completely consumeristic.
Sure.
Built to get every
Attitude.
dollar out of your pocket possible so you'll come back.
It's not necessarily meant to make you feel like a part of a family.
Yeah.
So, here's another thing they said in that email. Like, it was crazy. It says, what's the difference between treating someone like a visitor and treating them like a guest? It says, the obvious analogy is that we do things differently when we bring guests into our home. And we're saying, don't bring guests into your home.
Yeah, bring family.
They say, we clean up the house. We dress up. We put on the show. We prepare something special. We host them. We take care of all their needs. I'm like, that's not what I do with family.
Yeah.
I don't dress up special. Like, seriously, do you? I mean,
Never.
I don't want to tell people, hey, when you're doing life in community, when your kids come over, when your brothers and sisters are hanging out, make sure your hair's done right. Make sure you got your best clothes on.
Yeah.
Make sure the house is perfect. Make sure it's all laid out and everything's
Sure.
prepped. Make sure, they don't have to do a darn thing.
Yeah.
Don't let them stick around and help clean up. Oh my God, they're guests, right?
Yeah.
And all of that really just creates like a very false environment where people aren't getting to know the real you or your family, for that matter. They are seeing this
Disney's make believe.
face.
Let's remember that it's make believe.
It is make believe, and so they're seeing this face that you're putting on, but they're not necessarily getting to be, accepted as part of the family and have that experience.
And unfortunately, it feeds right into this view that people have of Christians and the church is it's this sort of fakey perfect show. And we live under it as Christians. We go, oh, I got to act a certain way, look a certain way, be prepared a certain way. I have to speak perfectly. You have to look perfectly. My house has to be perfect. My presentation of the gospel or whatever has to be perfect. And I've had, and I don't know if you've had it. I've had it in my own life where people go like, yeah. I know you guys are perfect. You do everything right in your family. Your kids are perfect. Everything works out perfect because you're Christians. ... But think about it. We propagate it though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Absolutely.
And there again, I love these leaders, and if anybody listening knows what I'm not slamming you. I love you, but I do want to implore you, encouraging people to live and pretend everything's perfect and have it all perfectly set up only adds stress to people's lives, and it's why we don't treat people like family.
Yeah.
Because we think it is a show.
Well, and then
It's not.
you spent 20 years getting to know somebody and you don't know them because you've only known the perfected version of who
That's
they are.
it. They come in, they sit down, they're afraid to, they're like, we sit in your front room. You can tell no one ever sits in here except during Bible study. And I was afraid to, you were really clear about getting shoes off, and golly, you have white furniture and white couch and a glass table, a coffee table. I was afraid to death.
Yeah.
That I was going to blemish something. But then I was noticing with all the pomp and circumstance, everything was served on paper plates and plastic. Paper cups for coffee, nasty. Coffee tastes like crud, Like if you're so worried about putting on the show, could I have a real cup?
Yeah, an actual
How about a fork? Yeah.
That's amazing.
The sad part is you're really projecting a very false image of who you are and who your family is, and you're making them feel like that they have to live up to it.
Yeah. Which
And
is unfair.
subtly, that's what God wants and expects from you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Or not so subtly. I know. I mean, we've had it. People, our family and friends used to walk around in eggshells around us. And it was our fault. But some of it was what we drug home from the church service. And then later on, when we both worked on staff,
Yeah.
everything had to be, it was all about perfection and excellence. And I actually think you should if you're going to do something, do it well. Do as best you can. But the ethos and the attitude behind how you treat people, and when they're in your home or even at your church service, there's a big difference if you want them to feel like a guest or feel like family.
Yeah. What are some ways that you guys would suggest that we can treat people like family both in our homes and in our churches?
Okay, so let's start out with the homes. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the very, very first thing I have to tell everybody, and this, 90% of the women I know just cringe when they hear this, but don't worry about having a spotless home. When people come over, what your home looks like is what your home looks like. And it's okay to let them into the messiness and the realness of your home.
Yeah, you don't want to project that perfection's required to enter here.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you can't touch anything, or if you touch something and move it, the whole house is gonna fall apart.
Yeah. Oh man.
I think I've shared
had that
before.
season even with my kids. Like when we'd have neighbors over and stuff, it was like,
Yeah.
clean the house. It needs to be perfect. Why? And
Yeah.
you start seeing things that haven't been cleaned for.
And
a
on the
month.
opposite's true. I think I shared this story before on Life School of a couple we knew. They're like, no, we don't have anybody with kids over. I'm like, well, why not? You got a great house and yard. And they're like, look at all our stuff. We spent a lifetime collecting this stuff. It's our favorite stuff. What if
It's
they break
all
it?
going to end up in a garage sale one day.
Right? So invite people into the normal mess of your family normality in life.
Love it.
It's okay. It really is. I've never, ever heard anybody go like, there's a little bit of like milk spilled on the chair. Or
Yeah.
like there was a little tear in that.
Yeah.
I saw a dust bunny. Like no one's...
Yeah, no one's doing that.
No, in fact, the more likely response is like, "Whew, she's got dust bunnies too."
Yeah, that's right.
All right. How about second one there, T? What do you got for us? Treating people like family, making them feel like family in our
Yeah,
homes.
when you have people over, whether you've invited them over or they just show up or whatever, let them help with what's going on. If you've got something that they can do to help with the meal, or sometimes taking out the trash. I mean, I've had people over and I'm like, I need these like 6 dishes that are in the sink right now. Could you just wash those up real quick?
Like I didn't get to it, or we used them already prepping the meal. Like, what can I do to help?
Sure.
Everybody
Yeah.
asks, like, oh, you could wash those dishes, or you mind running this out and throwing it in a can real quick because the garbage is overflowing. Caesar,
Or even keeping your kids busy so you can just finish up the last few details. That's what
Yeah.
good aunties and uncles do.
Absolutely.
kind of like give everybody a job, like
Yep.
and
Yeah.
like our friend Sally Breen, she's so good at this. She come over 75 people over for like training and community and all this stuff, and everybody's got something going on. Everybody's doing a little something. They all feel valuable. They all feel needed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's cool.
And they are, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at her, she's not stressed because she's not doing that much. She's just kind of helping
Delegating
people
it out,
feel like
yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next. When folks ask, like, hey, can I bring something to dinner? Like, give them something to bring. Instead of saying, no, I got it. It's all taken care of.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I love this because I'm a little bit of a control freak when it comes to the like meals and stuff, and I always want to make sure I have everything. And so sometimes I don't want to ask people to bring stuff because what if they don't come or don't come on time or don't have it. And so sometimes I will ask them to go ahead and bring stuff and just have some backup just in case.
Yeah, maybe you bought it, but that's
yeah.
okay. You got salad. Let them bring salad because
Yeah.
you don't want them feeling like I'm not really needed in
Yeah.
this.
Right.
Let them be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And that lets them have a part of it. They're going to bring something anyways. What I found, if you go like,
Yeah.
no, I don't need nothing, they'll just bring some wine, and that's okay, right? But how about just let them know?
Yeah.
And then if you have backup for it, it's okay in case they don't show.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things to do when people ask, what can I bring, especially if it's the holidays or something, I'll ask them, well, what does your family usually do? If it's a holiday, if it's Christmas, what does your family usually have on Christmas? And that not only invites them to bring
Any
something or
family
participate.
traditions that we could dig on?
Sure.
Right. And
Love
but then
that.
it gives them the opportunity to tell the story not only to me but to anybody else who's there for Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
Well, this is my family's favorite thing and my aunt always brought it or
I
made
love
it or
that.
whatever. And so it really helps bring their story to the story of your family.
Sure.
All right, next one is, and for some of you this can be super hard, but I'm telling you, let or even ask people, everyone in fact, to help clean up afterwards.
Yep.
You're having a
You made the
party,
mess.
you're having a hangout, a study, Mitchell community's over doing whatever, game, Super Bowl party, whatever, birthday party. Let everybody help clean up. In fact, even ask for it.
Yeah.
Because when you ask someone, hey, would you mind stacking all those for me? Or would you like scrape all that and I'm going to load them? Like if you scrape them, I'll load them,
Yeah.
whatever. You're telling them like, I see you as family.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it works. Like,
Sometimes we've even actually come out and said that. Now, you guys are all family here. You're all part of our family. This is Team K. We're all family together. So now everybody's going to help clean up.
You get to.
before you leave.
Yeah.
You get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then try and see, everything in your house and the layout and everything. Try to like see what you're doing. If you've not been living this way, try to see it through, the experience through the eyes and perspective of others.
Huh.
Hey, like we've been doing small group at our house for 100 years. Or
Yeah.
like, hey, we do Christmas over here every year, but like I do everything.
Sure.
and everybody splits. Like, how are people experiencing it? You know, like how would a guest, okay, who you want to feel like family, experience it? Do you think? What's the tone? What's the ethos of that? Did you point out like, hey, here's where the drinks are, and over here there's some juice boxes for kids, and if you don't find something, just dig around in the fridge, and most of the snacks are out, but there's also some on the shelf in the cupboard and over here, and so just dig in, and if we run out, rummage around or ask. If you don't see something you want, ask. We probably got it. You know, like how are they experiencing it, or is it a presentation? Like try to walk through your last event and see how much of it felt like family and how much it felt like, hey, people felt like they were really well-served guests.
Yeah.
Right?
Even thinking through, we've talked too, like, you know, turn your porch lights on, open up the windows, make it feel like it's a house that's a vibrant and welcoming, not an old castle that's closed up.
Totally dark. You're everybody's coming over. Like what?
So, okay, now let's move on to the church service sort of things. What are some ways that you guys would suggest that we could treat people better than guests, but actually as family when it comes to church services?
Yeah, give everybody Mickey Mouse ears.
The trams to the trams to the front doors. Charge them to get in.
All right, we'll go through these a little bit quicker, okay? Because people have to dig this out based on their own traditions and these things. Some of them you might not be able to change them like yourself or very quickly, but ideas, right? Let's give you some ideas. First, let's start out with this. Are you helping your church see themselves as a family and believing their identity as brothers and sisters because they have the same dad in heaven who sent a son, Jesus, you know, right? To take a bride, have many offspring. If they don't believe their identity as family, then they won't treat one another like family, even when they show up at the family reunion, quote unquote, on Sundays, right?
Yeah. And you know, start with the language even, you know, language really creates ethos.
Yeah.
And so telling, you know, talking to everybody, saying brother and sister, or hey family, you know, we're glad you're here this week or today, or that really is going to start setting the tone right off the bat.
How often do people hear this at a church service? Now, if you're a first-time visitor here with us, you know, then you're under no obligation to give. Hey, if you're a guest here, would you just raise your hand? If you're a guest, would you just go ahead and you just raise your hand for a second. We're going to pass a card to the center.
Sure.
And so, like, not only do we single people out, which would be weird in family life, but we also name them as they're not really part of us.
Sure.
Ooh, language is important. Are the folks in your church helping others feel like family and familiar to things? And how do they normally treat family when they meet family at home? Are they treating people that way on Sunday, or are they completely in different mode? Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Like, are we helping people see people when they show up as their family members? Or is it like, I'm trying to get to a good seat. I got to get my kids to the nursery
Sure.
and drop them off at Greenhouse or whatever it's called, you know, Little Sprouts. And then, right? So, or is that someone's job? Is that assigned to a special greeter with a badge and there's a hierarchy? I remember my dad made like head usher. He was stoked. You know,
Oh, that's awesome.
highest calling ever, right? Right?
He'd love to ush.
He loved to ush. My father could ush the heck out of you. Think about this. You're at your house. You're having a meal. Maybe it's a holiday meal. And then you notice someone floating around the living room or sitting at your dining room table, and you've never met them before. Sure. What would you do?
Go over and engage conversation.
You wouldn't be like, oh, I hope someone else talks to that guy.
Yeah.
Well, what's he doing here? Like, is that the pizza
Yeah.
delivery guy? You know, right? So you would, of course, engage people. And we've had, heck, man, not too a few weeks back at Cigar and Theology, you were over.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of new people coming over. And I remember having to right away going, hey, brother, so welcome. Like, glad you're here tonight. How are you here? Like, I'm friends with so-and-so. Great, man. Welcome. Are you hungry? Can I get you? Let me show you where some stuff is. Feel free, right? Like anytime. If you want to eat now, eat later. I don't care. You know, here it is. When you're hungry, help yourself.
And when that's the atmosphere, it so quickly feels like family. I mean, within 5 minutes, we're into each other's life stories. It's like, hey, I'm going to go grab a beer. Do you want one? I mean,
I'm going in, and anybody need refills? Like, right.
Absolutely.
And so like carry that over to like the church service on Sunday. If you see someone at your church service, and this is supposed to be a family gathering, we all nod, that family, we're a family. Then you'd talk to everybody. You wouldn't leave it up to a special person's job.
Sure.
Right? Like, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
So, but maybe you need to teach on this as a church. Maybe you need to have a rotational, like, missional community or small groups. So, like, hey, this missional community is handling it first week of the month, and this one's that, But their job is helping people feel like family. Hey, here's where we put our coats. Let me help you out with that. Don't just take it and whatever, give them a number, like at Bellhop or whatever. You're like, let me show you that.
Yep.
Hey, where's the kids? Like, do you have a place for our kids during the? Yeah, we totally do. And if they dig it, that's cool. If not, they could hang with you. Let me show you where that's at versus pointing and hoping. Or all that kind of stuff. Like, what if you, instead of like having a special department of volunteers helping guests feel a certain way, family members treated others like family and helped them have a killer experience?
Yeah.
And then what are you doing afterwards? Because we get hungry and we want to eat. And what's weird is churches will say, they'll do surveys and ask people, number one retention thing, someone invited me out afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like a family member?
Yeah. That's how you treat people.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Love that.
How about another one, T, for making Sundays church services feel like family more like than guests?
If we say that we're family, then we also need to have a space that reflects the family, which means that, your service area or your space that you're gathering in,
Where you meet.
where
they walk into.
shouldn't feel like a college lecture hall or some sort of
like a show's about to happen.
show.
Yeah, right.
It really should feel more like a family living room or family room, an area that's comfortable, that lends itself to talking to the people around you, not just like sitting and staring at the person's head in front of you.
Yeah.
I'm really so not a fan of pews. I understand the liturgy of that, but it just doesn't lend itself to creating any kind of family atmosphere.
Sure.
Even stuff like, do you have, and are you telling people, hey, there's coffee back here in the corner, and if you at any time want to get up and get a refill or whatever, you just feel free. If you need to stretch your legs or whatever, stand up. It's okay, because it's just a family here. We're just gathering.
Is there food? Is there snacks? Why not? That's what a family does.
Yeah,
my family never. I'm a capital N it. Never gets together where there's not food and drinks.
One of the few times that we can actually say something with an absolute is that there is always food.
So
in
if your
any
church says,
family
"Well, we do
event.
food," like, well, how often do you do it? Every week?
Yeah.
Why not? Right? And if it's family, is it the cheapest, most disposable way of doing it that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? So I know right now some people are listening like, well, sorry, but our building is set up like for a show, and it's never going to be any different. And we get a lot of people coming, so that's why. It's a matter of efficiency. Well, you know what? You know what I say to that? I say, if you were in the business of you're like a contractor and you're building homes, and you go like, yeah, but I own a 2-seater. My car's a 2-seater. Just is. I guess I'm stuck with it. How do you haul lumber? How do you pick up stuff and supplies and sheets of plywood and drywall? Like, guess what you'd do? You'd change it.
Yeah.
Over time, you'd figure out a way. You'd get a different vehicle. And so if your vehicle is just, and I know a lot of people, it's like, no, our building kills community.
Sure.
You know what? Pray, change it. How about color? How about seating, lighting, the tone, the language
feel
you
of it,
use, all of that, right?
Yeah.
And then there again, just like we said with the house, try and see the experience of what people are coming when they walk in that door or drive in through the eyes of a person is a brand new family member. Are they feeling like family?
Yeah.
Or are they coming to a show and they're shuttled around and no one's really talking to them except the people are supposed to, and maybe not even that. And then here's a program. I never handed out a program at Thanksgiving in my house ever,
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people like it. Well, yeah, okay, they like it for the show because I like to know who's up next, But anyway,
They're definitely going to feel more comfortable if somebody's taken the time to say, "Hey, here's the coffee," and just feel free to help yourself. But the last part of that too is I want to say if God didn't plan to include food and stuff, He probably wouldn't made communion take place during the course of a meal. And I think that really speaks something to His heart about our family and what we're called to do and how we're called to come together and remember Him, which is really what we're doing at these gatherings, right?
Absolutely.
So if we're not creating that same type of environment or excluding that completely, then I think we have to really think about what we're actually doing. And
historical
accomplishing.
note, the early church, we don't have a lot of evidence of what they did when they gathered. The one thing we know for sure was central was they took communion together. They had a full meal. It wasn't like 2 plastic cups, one stacked on top of the other, boom, bag passed down the aisle. It wasn't any of that. It wasn't once every other month. It wasn't quarterly. It was central, and it was a meal.
It was always. Yeah.
Think about it. Jesus could have done anything. He seriously could have pointed out and said, you see, when you see that rock, you just remember, like, I'm never changing, and my love for you is never going to change. And you see that tree, I'm about life. It's always growing, and it produces new life and seeds, right? He could have picked a million things. He picked a meal, and yet we've all but moved meals completely out of our Sunday experience. Yeah. And even when we do the very thing, the common union, the communion that he said this is a meal, it's not a meal anymore. At best, it's a walking up in line and grabbing a shard of bread and dipping it in something.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
Good bread.
Like, let's have a meal like we get to, right? Anyway, as always, I want to leave you with the big 3 takeaways from today's topic. This is going to be hard to condense down to 3 things, but I think I got you here. Now, if nothing else, I don't want you to miss these 3 things. And by the way, as always, you can get a printable PDF of this week's Big 3 as a free download. All you have to do is go to everydaydisciple.com/big3. Here's the first one. Remember, God sees every other person on earth as his kids and part of his family too. Yeah. And he wants us to see people that way. So that makes them all brothers and sisters. And some of his kids we know are far from him, or they don't know him or trust him yet. But that's why we're here, right? Yeah. We get to start showing them Dad's love, the love of our brother Jesus, God's own son, and that there's a place for them at the table. Okay? Like, we got to start seeing everybody's family. All right, Tina, second big 3 takeaway. What do you got?
God is not looking for or expecting perfection from us and our hospitality skills. So we just need to lose the fear of having a perfect house or being Martha Stewart and impressing everyone with your efforts and skills. Just invite them into the family, into your family experience.
You be you.
I love that.
And make sure there's a place at the table and they're going to love it. Okay, and then third is begin to see your house as a tool and a resource for building community and kingdom. All right? Viewing your home not as a refuge, or a hiding place, but rather as God's house changes our view and the ethos of how we're going to treat others who are there with us. Join us there. So start having a weekly open table. That's a meal where everyone and anyone gets invited in regularly, like do it weekly, and then treat them like a member of the family, not as a guest. Some of the stuff we talked about earlier. Remember, the goal is not for us to look good, but for others to experience and see just how good our Heavenly Father is. Hey, that's about it for today. Join me next week. I'll be talking with my friend and amazing author, Neil Cole. He's written some pretty watershed books on discipleship and missional living. I bet you've read some of them. And he's going to talk to us about prayer and finding ways for ordinary people to connect with God in all of life. Man, I love that. Okay? You're going to love him and you're going to love this episode. So I hope you'll join us for that. I'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks for joining us today. For more information on this show and to get loads of free discipleship resources, visit everydaydisciple.com. And remember, you really can live with the spiritual freedom and relational peace that Jesus promised every day.